welcome to this special conversation. This conversation is about all things data and AI. Well, data is a conversation that's unmissable, and AI is a conversation that's absolutely unputdownable. Is data the differentiator? Or will data ride on the wave of AI as we see it? This is going to be a wonderful, fascinating, interesting discussion on all things AI and data. And giving me company here on what promises to be a very exciting conversation looking into the future, we have a stellar panel. Let me introduce the panel to you. Mr. Shailendra Kothavale, Chief Risk Officer, Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance; Binit Jha, Chief Data Officer, IDBI Bank; Praveen Shrikhande, Chief Digital and Information Officer, Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail Limited; Balkrishna Singhania, Chief Data Officer, HDFC Life; and two wonderful gentlemen from IBM. Anand Ganapathy, Director Technology from IBM, and Siddesh Naik, who is the country leader, and he pretty much is the custodian of data and AI at IBM. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you so much for sparing your time in what really would be a wonderful conversation around data and AI. Let me just commence this discussion with something that's there in the horizon every single day. This is a conversation that you certainly can't miss. It's a current and contemporary conversation. And we are talking about data differentiator, the leadership exchange. The critical question that we are asking here is your business AI ready? Is your data AI ready? The first question that obviously comes to my mind is, how do you currently assess your data readiness with respect to AI, and what are the potential challenges that might come in the adoption of AI? This is a freewheeling conversation, so pick this up as you go.
So, great question. Before you can actually do AI, you obviously need good quality data for it to be meaningful. One of the existing challenge we have is data is in a lot of different silos. Different teams have different data lakes. These data lakes don't talk to each other. And basically what it means is, even if it's say customer data, the new business onboarding data doesn't talk to the customer service data, etc., which limits the kind of AI I can do. It limits our ability to serve the customer or control the risk, etc., in a meaningful manner. So the part that we are trying to do in HDFC Life is to create one massive data platform, and part of that is to have an integrated AI ML ops, and that is something that we are designing it in a way that not only serves our current AI needs but also sort of become pivot to future AI models. So that's what we are trying to do.
Right. Praveen, let me come to you. What are the critical challenges that you see when it comes to the adoption of AI, when it comes to the larger conversation around data?
So clearly, data is the foundation for any kind of AI. Right? In fact, when you look at what really drives adoption of AI in an organization, right? A lot of thought is on what is the algorithm. I mean, there have been various generations of algorithm, GenAI being the latest. However, the foundation for that is always data, and the other critical factor is change management within the organization. Because whatever solutions you build, their adoption and really delivering value for the business happens when the organization adapts to that new technology. So creating that data foundation is fundamental to being able to run any kind of algorithm, and it has been the case even in the past,
right,
and even more so today. In a business like ours, which is a fashion retail business, it's not just about, I mean, a lot of focus becomes on the customer data, and there's regulations around it. But the use cases, apart from around customer, which of course are critical, there are several use cases right from product development. The fashion is an industry where the product changes every 3 months. So what product to make, how much to make, how to distribute with a network of 4,000 stores that we have. All these problems can only be solved with different kinds of AI technology, and they've been the case for several years. Similarly, the use of AI across an omni-channel retailer like us, where we have stores as well as in e-commerce, and the ability to be able to service our customers in the best possible manner across those channels becomes critical. And having the data from all the systems that engage at different parts within the different parts of the organizations, right from product development to supply chain to customer engagement, is critical. And having that in one place and being able to leverage that for AI is the way that becomes the foundation for any.
Shailendra, how critical is AI for you right now as a conversation, and how ready is your data to embrace AI?
Yeah, so I think we are a life insurance company, a regulated one, but a highly retail company. And as we speak, I have competition sitting next to me, where we are there at some
Did
specific.
you shake hands before the meeting?
Of course, we shook hands and we learn from each other, we push each other, and we get the best out of each other. And especially some of the banks we are associated with push us in terms of getting the best solutions, giving the best products to the customers. And I think data plays a very critical role around it. So even a company like us, which could be a few numbers behind the competition, we need to catch up and catch up fast and offer the same level of service to the customer. And hence, we need to be more agile. And data plays, I think it's the fulcrum, it plays a key role. And I think AI will accelerate your use of data, make it more, I can say, use of unstructured data, and remove the bias out of decision making. So I think both data and on top of it, usage of AI will be key as we move on it.
Anand, let me come to you. You have conversations almost every day around data, around AI, and you also have an inside out view of what your customers are thinking. When it comes to data, what is your observation? How prepared are organizations when it comes to the readiness of data, while they're also thinking simultaneously about adopting AI?
I think we need to take a step back and
Sure.
look at what data means to an organization, what it meant a few years ago and what it means today. Data a few years ago meant data coming from transactional systems. If we look at most of our organizations, they're fairly ready with that data. I use the word fairly ready because, as Bala said, there are still silos, there are still inconsistencies, but that's something that you can iron out. You can find common fields, you can find customer records, you can make that work. It's a little effort. But if you step forward today, data does not mean only structured data. For an enterprise to harness data, to be able to use it as some form of an advantage, today there's data in all forms. When you and I browse on our mobile phones, that's data. Your GPS location is potentially data. What you blog on Twitter or Instagram is data. Organizations collect this. This is available to all these organizations here. And all of this also is insight. Now, if you look at the readiness of organizations to harness this data, that's not there. We're not there ready with that. So what organizations are struggling with today is two things. One is, what am I going to do with these new forms and formats of data? What am I going to do with the current data that is in silos? How do I bring all of this together? And how do I bring all of this together to suddenly make sense? Because the customer ID the bank uses or the insurance company uses is not your ID on Instagram. So they need to figure that out. And then they need to make sense of this, saying, I need to bring all of this together. I need to find a way to massage all of this. But at the same time, there's a larger challenge saying, some of this is PII data. Some of this is data that you can't use in ways without customer consent. So there is a whole element of things. There are a bunch of things happening here. It is a tough time for some of these people here, but it is a very challenging and interesting time for them to figure out how with technology you can move forward with all of this. So it's all going to be possible, but it's going to take some time, some effort, and use of technology to bring it all together.
All right, Siddesh, it doesn't seem to be that easy a conversation. It's a complex conversation. When we talk about data readiness, like Anand said, we need to define data the way we look at it. It's also about how you get AI into the conversation, and it doesn't seem to be a very easy conversation at this point in time. What are the challenges?
So when you talk of AI, and in fact, if I go back 1.5 years, the whole foundation model brought in an inflection point in AI, and there has been an explosion ever since. It started a massive hype curve. While that hype cycle has tapered down, people have started looking at the right use cases, the right ROI that goes in towards it. The other few aspects which I believe has been pivotal to a decision on how do I scale AI for my organization involves, like I said, picking up the right use case for the right ROI. The right model, the typical market approach has been a hammer and nail approach, a 300 billion, 400 billion model for anything and everything, but that doesn't obviously get you to the ROI
Right.
that you need to deliver to your organization. So how do I find the right model for the right use case? The next aspect that comes in is an aspect of the whole data governance. Like Bala said, your AI is as good as your data. The junk in is junk out. So how do I have the right data? How do I create a data foundation that is AI ready? The other complexity that's coming in is around the whole aspect of on-premise, multiple public clouds, multiple platforms. The whole multi-dimensional predicament is becoming more and more complex by the day. And one of the aspects that's critical is AI is where the data is. If your entire transaction data is on-premise and you're going to run your AI on the cloud, you've got to plan it accordingly. So how do I plan this whole landscape in a conundrum which is hybrid is very, very critical. And last but not the least is how do I bring in all the governance that I need to run this AI. So the first part we spoke about was the data governance aspect, and then you're coming into the AI governance aspect. How do I ensure I have all the guardrails I need to consume this in my enterprise? I think those are what I would call the enterprise considerations for an enterprise to adopt AI.
Right, I'll come back to Anand again. Anand, this, while it is a very complex problem, while it is a complex conversation, is it also a case of different horses for different courses? Because, like you said, data could exist in different avatars, and there could be different AI solutions for that as well. Is that a possibility as well? Because there might not be a one-size-fits-all for everything with AI.
There should not be, because different organizations are trying to solve different problems.
So doesn't it increase the complexity as well?
It doesn't, because an HDFC Life is not trying to solve a problem that NASA is trying to solve, and vice versa. Right. So you are going to have different horses for different courses. And like Siddesh said, today the approach, when the inflection point 15, 18 months ago, when AI became a thing, when generative AI became a thing, AI has always been around, was that, there is a big model, 300 billion, 400 billion parameters, you need a ton of hardware, a ton of compute infrastructure to be able to make some sense out of all of this. But, is that the right approach? Because we don't need an AI model sitting inside HDFC Life to answer problems about wave theory. We don't need it.
Right.
We've got to have that model answer problems that are relevant to HDFC Life, its business, and its customers. That's possibly the landscape, which is where, from large language models that we've all heard of, there is a new, I won't say new, relatively new concept called small language models that are now becoming prevalent.
Right.
From 300 billion parameters, you brought it down. It came down to 14, and then now it's 8 billion. Different people are bringing this out, which is made for purpose. You're going to reduce the number of parameters because it's got to solve a specific problem, and it does that very well. It does that fast, and it does that with minimal infrastructure, which, like Siddesh said, AI has got to deliver ROI. This is a fancy toy. It's not here to suck up money of enterprises. If you reduce the problem, if you reduce what it's going to consume, and throw a right use case at it, it's going to deliver faster ROI. So you've got to have different LLMs, different AI models, different toolkits to be able to answer different problems, which are relevant to each of these companies. What's relevant to him is not relevant to Madhura. It's a different problem.
Right. But AI can still be a very, very potent conversation when it comes to data. That is something that you can't miss at this point in time, which is a conversation that I wanted to have with you, Bala. We're talking about data readiness. We are talking about AI. What are the critical pillars that would make my data ready for AI?
So, the key thing is to understand what business problem are we really enabling. If you are enabling, for example, a medical underwriting, do I have medical data? Historically, we used to get medical data which used to come to us through fax, which means essentially an image which is really poor in terms of being able to do an OCR on top of it. And human can mostly read it, but a machine found it difficult. But do you have enough data for you to create a medical model of any sort? So, do you have the data in first place? That's first question. Second question, more importantly, do you have a business use case that will use the data in a meaningful manner that will give you the business benefit out of it? Now, when you have these two, the data scientist will create the models. And I like to think of my data team into two parts: people who create models versus people who work with the models to solve the business problems. Right? Now, that second part is often where we are unprepared a lot of times, and that is why a lot of our models fail, not because they are machine learning wise deficient, but more because the strategy guy or the sales guy or the operations guy doesn't have a strategy aligned with the output of the model, and therefore they cannot use the model. I thought I built the best model, and the operations guy doesn't have a strategy aligned with the model, and therefore they don't use it. There are other challenges that we are seeing today. Is my IT infrastructure capable to call the latest API from my models? Now that's a next level of problem.
Right.
And all of this basically means for us to use AI in a meaningful manner, you first need the foundation, which is data. You need the tech infrastructure, whether it is on cloud or on-prem or a combination of it. That's the second part of the problem. Third part is the business use case. And fourth and probably the most important part is, are your users ready? Do you provide them the training? For us, a lot of our models and a lot of our AI, a lot of whatever we do is for our frontline salespeople. He is sitting in a small city, probably working with our banker partner, right? Competing with him. So the thing is, that guy believes that he knows the customer better than my model, which is true. So I have to think about how my AI adds value to that, the last guy in the full value chain. And some of these things are really the part of solutioning, and that's where a lot of struggle are in terms of getting it adopted, having a strategy aligned, and so on. I think we are decently good in solving the technical part of the problem. But thinking through till the full value supply chain, that's also an aspect of the problem that we need to solve.
It was the Olympian Michael Phelps, when asked about his prowess in the swimming pool, is a very interesting thing. What you see as a gold medal in a 100-meter sprint is 10 years of hard work. Vinit, let me come to you. What's the hard work that organizations need to do to get their data ready for AI?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. The hard work is, what you already mentioned. Hard work is just seen once in a while. But the work which you do just to get there is a long journey. So similarly, same thing happens with here where I am. So to get right data is multi-year hard work, I would say. It's hard work in a sense of gathering those data. It's hard work in a sense of capturing those data. It's hard work in a sense of converging to a decision of having which data set to go for a particular type of event reporting. It's hard work to convince different divisions what data is needed for what type of activities.
Right.
So essentially, I would say there are so many dynamics which is involved when we talk about having data ready is unimaginable. The way AI is unimaginable, or the outcome of AI is unimaginable as of now. Still, I would say the kind of hard work which goes in making the data ready for AI to give us the right input, right output, is also very, very much required.
Right. Shailendra, what are the mountains that you need to move from your perspective to make AI a hero here?
So I assume you're referring to the challenges which come up
Absolutely.
in terms of. So I think in terms of AI, getting AI right is very critical, and responsible AI, I would say, in terms of adoption, you need to ensure that there are no biases in terms of decision making. You need to ensure you're testing the model to weed out any false positives, and sometimes a good tool can also give you a sense of comfort when it's not there, and you tend to rely too much of it. Sometimes basic human judgment might start getting replaced by an AI. Just to give you an example, we do a lot of underwriting now through AI based tools. We don't know whether a normal human judgment can be fully replaced by an underwriting tool which is there, but at least if we can get it to the point of decision making, or if it can help in terms of simple cases. But in case there's anything which is complicated, which requires a human element, I think that's very important. And I think increased use of AI brings with it its own sense of responsibility in terms of how you're going to use it. Just to give you an example, let's assume the customer has given you the right to forget and remove the data preferences which are there. Now, if your models are based on the data which is given by the customer, do you remove those preferences or that customer data from those models, or do you continue doing it? And how easy or difficult it is to do it are some of the challenges we'll face as we increasingly use AI.
Anand, as he talks about challenges, a critical conversation is also to prepare the organization to adopt AI. Now, in your opinion, what are the critical steps that an organization needs to adopt when it comes to embracing AI?
A few things. I think AI is going to change or will change the way organizations think, function, and strategize. All three are going to happen, right? I think the first thing that needs to be thought through is, what are you going to use AI for?
What's the purpose?
What's the core purpose? And the core purpose could be many. You could say, I'm going to use AI to enhance customer experience. You could say, I'm going to use AI, like he said, to help improve internal decision making, internal efficiency. He spoke of using reading OCR, and is there a way to improve the way you work internally? Or, like in the case of IBM, we've said we're going to try and use AI to increasingly automate and bring natural language into normal working, into normal things that people have to do. So it depends on what you want to do with AI. I think that's the first thing that organizations have to answer, because the guardrails you need to bring in, the thought process around AI that needs to be brought together is very different when you do different things. If AI is contained within the organization, to enhance employee experience, to do certain workflows, it may be a different set of guardrails you need to follow. If you're going to expose AI to answer customer query and answer customer, help customers take decisions, then it's a very different ballgame. Like he said, the whole concept of responsible AI comes in, where if you are a regulated enterprise, it's again a different ballgame, because now if you're using AI, that model has to answer regulators. It's got to be, you got to figure out how to make it free of biases. You got to figure out how to take the hallucination out of the models. You got to make sure it is repeatable. So a lot of those aspects come in. So before you go down the path, I think it's important for you to step back and say, data is important, we'll figure that out. Technology, like somebody said, technology is there, we'll figure that out. But please, let's first figure out which part of the business is going to get impacted by AI and what's the ROI there.
Absolutely. ROI is going to be a very important conversation here as well. But let me come to you, Praveen. How do you see the triad of data, AI, and purpose? He raised a very important point. What lens are you using to look at AI? What would be your purpose when you look at data and AI?
So I think the development of AI is a given. I mean, progress of technology in many ways is something which is in a way unidirectional. I mean, it will move. It's a question of how we manage that transition of leveraging different forms of technology, and which has probably happened as different technologies have evolved. When the internet first came in, there were a lot of concerns around its use as well. Right. So today it's AI, and there are concerns. I think today the way we see AI evolving is it's still at its early stages, where the focus has to be on getting it right. New algorithms are coming up every day almost. New models are coming up. Now, what will really work and for which business use case, and how will you really assimilate that within your organization in a responsible manner is critical. We are also having regulatory guardrails coming in currently in the form of, let's say, the DPDP Act or the IT Act earlier. And I'm sure these will evolve. There's a lot of talk about new regulation coming in other parts of the world, which will probably also come in India. So how do we really do it in a manner where we are, it's benefiting society in general and leading to the overall improvement in the organization goals, as well as driving the purpose of a group like ours.
In your experience of interacting with your clients, what lens are they viewing this through?
So going back to the triad you spoke of, right? I think it all starts with a business outcome, with a purpose. But the purpose is a goalpost that keeps evolving as the technology evolves, as you can see outcomes evolving. I think there is one more very, very important element is the change management within the organization that goes in. It is the organization and different levels of the organization accepting the change that AI is bringing, and how do you embrace it within the organization becomes a very, very critical element. Of course, technology becomes an enabler here, but it is like Bala spoke about. It's not about technology; it's more about how does it integrate into your overall strategy. You can achieve that model using technology, but if it doesn't fall into the operation team strategy, it means nothing, right? And that's the whole game about, and how the triad is going to evolve. So one of the critical aspects that we've seen in our experience is clients are taking that leap of faith. Leap of faith in terms of uh, putting in some investments uh, that they are now slowly seeing returns on. It is not an ROI that matches the investment that's going in on an immediate basis, but it is an investment that they know is going to yield them very significant results, give them significant business outcomes, maybe a very drastic business models that could come in because of the whole AI piece getting embraced in an extremely integrated manner across the organization, across customer experience, across operational efficiency, and that changes the entire paradigm for the business. And I think that is where customers are taking the leap of faith towards.
Let's also talk about a sacred space. And the sacred space is of governance, privacy, and compliance in AI workflows. Pala, let me come to you. When we talk about this sacred triad of governance, privacy, and compliance, is there a possibility that you're going to perhaps compromise with your agility, your speed to market, possibly the way you've worked? And these are wild militants that could run your business down?
So I think compliance is almost now a way of life. How you look at what you have to look at. Now,
My question was specific to AI as well.
so when I say compliance, I mean data compliance, info security, and all of that is almost a way of life in tech world today. There are different aspects of governance that is shaping up. DPDP Act provides some of that, but say responsible AI, observable AI, hidden biases, hallucinations, all of these are real problems. The thing is, if we don't get certain things right, either from a model perspective or governance perspective, you potentially risk the entire business.
Right.
And that is a significant risk. And all large companies or small companies, I think everyone who is using AI sooner or later are realizing that while it may be in the name of compliance, but these are basic hygiene. And compliance is not for the sake of pleasing the regulator. It ensures that we work in a healthy manner that is sustainable. So if my model says I don't like people from rural area because my data says they have never taken insurance. Now that's a bias. If I don't remove the bias, tomorrow it will reject all rural customers which will hurt me. So when I remove that bias, it ensures that I treat that person fairly, which helps my company itself. So yes, to the fresh interior, when I was also young, it looks like a headache, but in medium term, it helps the business in a right way.
So don't see it as a villain, don't see it as an impediment, don't see it as a roadblock.
I see it as like a guardian or our parent when we started walking and running.
Shailendra, you're in a similar business and you're dealing with data which again is within the domain of privacy, for example, and this is something that is absolutely sacrosanct. You can't tinker with it. Now, when it comes to AI, what are the possibilities? Is data going to get compromised? Will the privacy contract going to get compromised? What are you thinking?
So I think there are real concerns around AI in terms of how the laws will evolve, what is expected in terms of organizations, because I think we have moved from data confidentiality or data security, which was simplistic, to something around privacy of data, then to comply with the IT Act, to the sector regulations, to the various DPDP Act rules, and AI will be on top of it. We don't know how the regulations will evolve. What will be the implications of some of these models? What could be some of the unintended consequences? And obviously, we also think of in future the machines will develop human-like thinking ability, and they could take over some aspect of human. So, to what extent would you want to create that Frankenstein? We don't know. There are European laws which are coming up on AI which look very strict. India is also working in that direction, but as I see it, India is looking at tapping the AI opportunity more than the regulations. So I think the regulations will follow later. We will first settle down the DPDP, the privacy of what we can understand well. The AI part of it, in terms of biases, the hallucinations, the right modeling, it will be more towards ensuring you do the right decision making rather than the unintended consequences of AI. But yeah, we'll have to think about it in future.
Anand, very quickly, is AI going to be the bull in the China shop when it comes to governance, privacy, and compliance and run amok?
If you let it be, it will. The question is, do you want to let it be? And the question is, will you let it be? Today, if you let it run amok, as he rightly said, you face reputational risk.
Right.
You face the risk of existence. And therefore, our point of view is all your guardrails, all your governance is the first step you take, is the first thought you put in place.
Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable before you start the journey, so that you have the guardrails in place to make sure you don't fall. It will save you from falling, and it will evolve as you go, because you're going to learn a little bit as you go along. There are, as you rightly said, there is already an AI Act in Europe. India may take time, but hey, there's nothing wrong in us being self-regulated about it, and we should be. It is a powerful tool, and we should make sure we use it in the right way and bring it to bear for us in all its power in a constrained manner, constrained by the guardrails.
Absolutely. Praveen, let me play devil's advocate here for a minute and ask you, there is this need for integration of AI in the conversation around data. There's also a learning journey. While we are learning, is there a possibility that this learning could be a little expensive for us?
So I think that this will differ from businesses to businesses, right? Some businesses, the risk of things going wrong in the learning phase can be very high, financial services or health and so on, right? In our business, we don't see the risk to be that much. Beyond compromising data, let's say whatever privacy data, personal data. I think the opportunities are far more unimaginable in many ways. As I said, like simple things like product creation, right? We've seen that our designers have really found the Gen AI tools very useful when it comes to creating new products, right? And similarly, when it comes to doing simple things like creating a product description, we used to struggle. I mean, in fact, for a business like ours, writing product descriptions for 30,000 products that we launch every year used to be a big challenge. But AI has made it possible to do some of the things which you couldn't do earlier, or being able to make a much more like thinking of creating a fashion stylist which can interact with customers like a real person would do. Today, that is in the realm of reality, which earlier was not possible. So I think the opportunities are new and which will add value to the business vis-a-vis it being. So I would see these as new use cases which have not been there before getting enabled with AI.
Very quickly to you, Siddesh, what are the guardrails that you need to keep in mind, or what are the guardrails that you need to put in place so that your learning is a little more inexpensive?
So the approach we've been taking with a lot of clients is a platform-based approach, which, like Anand said, right, the whole regulatory environment is going to keep evolving. So how do I put a platform approach that gives you the ability to evolve your guardrails as well as you go by?
Right.
Broadly, the guardrails are the whole governance piece. The AI governance piece is around three broad pillars. The first pillar is around risk. He alluded to it in terms of the gender bias, caste bias, the rural bias that you spoke about. How do I prevent bias? How do I bring in explainability? In a banking scenario, you reject a home loan, you've got to provide explainability. It cannot be a black box rejecting a home loan. Again, a piece where you start with something, your data sets keep changing. Your model lands up delivering something very different from what it was intended. So how do I have a platform approach to monitor and measure that drift and make sure it doesn't drift? Uh, there, as you bring in Gen AI, how do I prevent hallucination? The panel spoke about it. How do I prevent hate profile? How do I prevent profanity? How do I prevent PI information from getting exposed? So a whole lot of guardrails that come in. So that becomes the first pillar, the
Right.
risk pillar. The second pillar is around the compliance pillar, the piece that Shailendra you spoke about, the whole regulatory compliance. Now the European Union AI Act talks about 39 things. Now you can't straddle your data scientist saying you've got to figure out are you complying with every one of them, right? How do I have a platform approach which lets you go comprehend them and talk about which ones are relevant and how do I go take care of that? That becomes a critical pillar. The third pillar goes in, which is the pillar around the life cycle management around the whole of this. And this could be anything and everything that you do with respect to AI in your organization, be it what you do on premise, what you do on multiple clouds, what you do as embedded AI as well. Today, there are tons of applications that come in with embedded AI APIs that come in. Now, that also needs to be measured and governed in terms of a regulated industry, or in fact, even in a non-regulated industry, you've got to be careful and you've got to govern that. How do I do that? How do I do a process governance? For example, in an IDBI bank, you run 200 plus models. You want to pick one model and figure out what has been the governance followed on this. Your ability to go find that and pick that and have that in place is an element you. So broadly, three elements, three pillars: risk, compliance, and life cycle management.
All right, so let's talk about another very critical current and contemporary conversation. That's the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, or the DPDP Act. Beneath, you deal with a multitude of data universes in that sense. How does the DPDP Act come in the way of you being competitive and agile while thinking about your data and how to use it for your consumers?
It has an impact. It has definitely an impact. Now, so we have to do business because we are in the process of banking business, which is highly regulated anyways. As he spoke, compliance, we should not and we do not consider, be it even RBI, be it our own, right? We have enough number of compliance which we have to follow. At the same time, this is another one, right? But from the perspective of banking, naturally we need to follow what has to come and what is coming up. So one good thing which government has done this time is they have involved all the stakeholders at the time when drafting the policy. I personally being part of it, where we are providing inputs after looking at all the apps and what is there in it, how that is going to impact us. So instead of having the early approach or earlier possible approach where you would be the receiving at the final outcome and you would be just having to implement, other than that you don't have an option. This time you are at the forefront where you are being told to look at it, provide feedbacks, and on those feedback government is also accepting. So that's one. Coming to your question, so it's a twin-edged sword, right? Where you have to implement this DPDP Act. Naturally, today, for example, today customer, there are a lot of data which we use and consider this by default of a customer's data and do a lot of analytics on it. Tomorrow we have to go to customer asking, can I use your data to service your home loan? He says yes for home loan, but no for insurance. How do I manage that? One person committing a data, his own data, to be informed on home loan today, But today he's not interested in personal loan or maybe insurance. Tomorrow he gets married, he has a child. Now he wants a health insurance, but he does not need a home loan. So how dynamic? Look at the this
Right.
problem, bigger problem. How dynamic you want to make your system and how agile to adjust with clients' need or customers' need on nightly basis today, and the penalty is like unbelievable. You know the numbers, right? So it's now today I said I'm fair enough. I think my son is not well, so I need health insurance. So I'll go on the site and then I'll say, my data is ready to be used for health insurance. Tomorrow, I say, no, I got health insurance. My brother calls me, says, no, I have a health insurance for the whole family. What do you need it? I go and disable. While I get this data yesterday and I'm processing it.
Right.
But then he says that I do not need this data now. So what do you do now? So it's such a dynamic situation which is coming up. We do not really know how to handle and where to. But then we hope whatever feedback we are providing to government, and government is accepting it most likely. There are a few things which needs to be enabled. There are a few discussions where we need to understand more. But then it's going to definitely have an impact, and
Yeah.
we are looking for, we are waiting, and we are going to implement for sure.
So this is also an evolving conversation, Shailendra, around DPDP. Did you have to recalibrate because of the DPDP Act?
Yeah, definitely. So the act has been in the works for a long time, and so we have a good heads up around compliance on it. The good thing is the earlier version of the DPDP Act was on the lines of GDPR, which was very prescriptive. This is principle based. So to that extent, you get some level of flexibility in terms of adopting and adapting your operating models to the whole thing. And the rules are not yet in. So I think we have a heads up of at least 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. Personally, as an organization, what we are doing is we are doing a gap assessment of where do we stand against the existing privacy and DPDP expectations. Obviously, with the rules, what changes could come up from the rules, and trying to gain a competitive advantage of trying to be the first or at least among the first in terms of being ready. And I personally strongly feel that any regulation plays the role which will take forward the industry long term, because ultimately it is beneficial to the end customer, because a lot of companies are driven by their operating models by short term goals. So take an example of a Formula 1 racing car. You will drive very fast knowing there's a brake. Out here also, you'll become a more responsible person,
Absolutely.
knowing there is a regulation which will help you always think of the customer in the middle. And I think this is what the act will do, being a principle based regulations with adequate amount of time being available. So we are not worried about the act or its implications. We are just being ensuring that there is no disruption to the operating model and we meet its intended purpose.
Anand, very quickly, I'm told that we have desperately run out of time, but very quickly, how can organizations leverage modern data architecture to curate this conversation around AI?
See, modern data architectures. If you see, you have a possibility of looking at architectures from the open source world.
Right.
You have a possibility of looking at architectures from the MPP environment, and you have a possibility of putting all of this together and running AI models on top of it. So I think the three things that we as IBM look at. The first is it's got to be hybrid by design. Uh, Whatever architecture you put in place, whichever way you got to look at your data, the reality is you're going to operate in a hybrid world where your data is going to flow between different systems, some off-prem, some on-prem, but all of this you've got to remember is your own data. It has to be governed, it has to be protected in the same way, with the same rules, with the same policies. So that's the first principle that we use. The second principle that we use is um, build in your governance, build in all the requirements of tokenization, encryption, all of this from day one. because as you go down this journey, as you far down this journey, coming back and making a change or course correction tends to be very difficult. And the third thing is always look at all of this from the lens of the business and not from the lens of technology. As Bala said, technology can do everything today. It doesn't matter.
But look at your purpose.
Look at your purpose and solve for the purpose instead of solving for what's the fancy new gadget around town.
Absolutely. Finally, and this is something that I want all of you to sort of very quickly tell me, perhaps in one sentence. Like I said, we have critically run out of time. In the next 3 to 5 years, what would determine data leadership and innovation, and where is this AI conversation going?
Purpose and ROI.
All right, purpose and ROI. For you, Bala?
So similar, I think getting the right use case for the right customer or right stakeholder.
Okay, horses for courses for him. What about you, Anand?
Hybrid by design.
Hybrid by design. All right. Shailendra.
I think the end usage by my guy in the remotest corner of the country of whatever model we make will be the key success.
All right. Praveen.
I think meeting customer expectations that they have of enterprises as individuals vis-a-vis what enterprises can deliver.
Siddesh. Final word from you.
I would say the future is now. The enterprises that really invest in scaling AI across their enterprise responsibly are the ones who are going to reap benefits in the times to come.
That's the final word. The future is now. The future is getting ready every single minute with new conversations around AI and data. Gentlemen, thank you very much for speaking to me. It was a very engaging conversation with so many takeaways on the roadmap ahead for data and AI. The twain shall meet, and this will be a conversation that will present itself with new possibilities every single day, because the future is now.